I would love for you to share with the audience sort of your background in franchising. I understand you were the president of Title Boxing Club back in the day. So share a little bit with the audience the origin of your franchise journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'll spare the details, as every great story has lots of highs and lows, as every good book that especially your life story in a book. But I'd say, I got into franchising in 2013 and I came from the direct selling industry prior. So it was a very similar industry, but just with different scale. And when I started at Title, we had arguably probably 30 to 40 units. I don't recall the count, but we had a good little nest egg of locations open and had sold between 200 to 400 units. So it was a big pipeline of what we needed to open and little to no resources and no team. It was myself and, handwriting the marketing manual to the brand guide to the tools and resources to vendors and removing vendors and adding and all of this stuff. And I was new to franchising. So I failed a lot in that time. And from 2013 to 2020, during COVID was really like the big run that we had. And we had just shy of 200 prior to COVID. So we went from roughly 30-ish units to 200 in 8 years' time. In 2014, we were named the fastest growing franchise in America, and it felt like it every single day. I'll say that much. We have some really good war stories with all of the original crew that was really part of the growth because you just hold on to your seats because you're moving so fast. And you ask for forgiveness a lot because you're making decisions on the fly as you grow and scale that, as you gain data, you could look back on and would make different. But, that's part of the fun and joy of being an emerging brand is you're really like boots to the ground. How are we going to do this and grow it? So I developed the marketing team and brand. It had just gone through a rebrand. It used to be like cage paneling and MMA when it was first founded in 2008. And then when we really started franchising, it was more of a modern boutique fitness category for a 35-year-old female wanting to get a boxing or kickboxing workout. So changed the positioning, mission, vision, all of it. And, I'd say the biggest value that I've had in my career working there was all the different versions of the business that we tweaked it to along the way is really what I get to advise brands on today. And after going through an acquisition, they named me president of the company. It was January of 2021. And I was 3 months pregnant secretly because it was during Zoom and it's a secret during your first trimester anyways. I was like, gosh, I just achieved my top 2 life milestones
Oh,
literally in the same week of my existence. And I was sitting there like extremely overwhelmed, to be perfectly honest, because
right.
we had every unit shut down during COVID. And then we have new ownership come in. I'm pregnant. Let's see, I had Axel when I was 38. So I'd made it in my career. And then I finally achieved this life mission of mine was to become a mom. And I'm like, I got to just sit back and evaluate. So I thought long and hard about what I wanted to do. And I believe we are most qualified to help the people or person we used to be.
Mm.
And if I could go back in time and help Brooke as an emerging franchise brand with no tools or resources or really high level CMO thinking, what does she need? And
Mm.
that's really the origin of Momentum Brands and how it was founded. And, I'm sure we can unpack that story, but
Yeah.
spending nearly a decade at Title Boxing Club, fastest growing franchise in America, Inc. magazine. We didn't even believe it when we saw the award come out, but we felt it. And I learned so much in growing that fast and growing teams and franchise units and multi-units and all of it. And it was a great journey.
What a ride, Brooke. Seriously, from 2013 to 2020, that is like a lifetime in franchising that you had done over 7 years. Oh my goodness. So because the audience is made up of, founders of emerging brands or folks looking to get into franchising and potentially franchise their company, I think if we kind of go back in time to some of the things that you did right, and I'd love for you to share with some of the things that you think if you do it all over again, you would never do it this way, because what you accomplished by helping grow that brand so fast is what many of us aspire to do before we franchise, right? We have these dreams. I'm going to open 100 locations. I'm going to open 200 locations in 5 years. We're going to explode. But as we all come to find out, that's not necessarily the best way to go about it, because we don't always end with that smile on our face that that you have when we do grow that fast. So take us back to the beginning. You're a small team. What were some of the things, Brooke, that you guys did really well? And what were some of the big mistakes?
So I would say, as a small team, one of the biggest advantages that you have is doing it yourself. And one of the biggest disadvantages you have is doing it yourself. And that is really the big decision making that you have, is to know when to outsource or to add to your team or not. Because we did not have budgets. As you're a startup brand, you really don't have big marketing budgets. And we had a 1% ad fund, but the units were just getting open. So there's really not a brand fund to pull from anyways.
Right.
So we did a lot of things internally. I actually started my career as a copywriter and a proofreader and editor. And so I personally hand wrote every headline of every ad that was placed, to the call to action, to the website, to, we learned how to cut cost and do some things with the skills that we had. We would outsource graphic designers because we could easily, I worked with somebody in my prior career who was an art director, and very niche and high quality work. So I knew, okay, great, she could knock out the design and I'll do the copy. Mm-hmm. So we saved agency cost, and we did a lot of things internally. And by doing that, we knew the exact brand and what we wanted to say and who we were and what we wanted to target, and we saved cost. Now, as you grow and scale, you can't, as the head of marketing, I grew and scaled myself. I wasn't always the marketing director, senior director, VP, et cetera, all the way up. And so you can't always be the one writing the headlines. So then I started bringing on team members, and usually the marketing department, you're looking for marketing specialists and not franchise experience specialists.
Right.
And I think that's usually an area that people fail often in emerging brands, is you do need somebody with marketing, but at least one person on the marketing team has to understand your actual core customer is your franchisee. Mm-hmm. And how you train him or her. And if you understand franchising, the simplicity of scale is a lot easier with far less bruises and bumps if you have somebody with franchise experience. If you don't, actually, that's where Momentum Brands comes in, because we give you the guidance and the direction, and then your marketing person executes internally the brand that you've known and built. So what we do at Momentum is, number one, the fractional CMO consulting. But the second part, aside from business intelligence, is we will actually, myself and my brand director are trained copywriters and designers. We write and curate your brand guide, your grand opening guide, your manuals ourselves. Mm-hmm. So you get a CMO brain on weekly calls with triage and business direction and insight, plus the tangible tactical tools that are also never inside of the business by individuals who ran franchise marketing teams. And so it's literally like the unicorn of all unicorns, because we're not a vendor, we're not a partner, and we're not a franchisor. But really, my qualifications of my team members, you have to have worked inside of a franchise brand and in marketing, because I think that lens is so refreshing to an emerging franchisor who needs somebody to say, if you tell me what to do, I'll do it.
Right.
I just need somebody to point me in the right direction. There's no shortage of hardworking, phenomenal concepts from emerging franchise brands out there. There is a shortage of like the gatekeeping of the directional, how do you avoid the landmines along the way?
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.